When it works, the shift didn't start outside. It started inside you, before you even realized it was happening. What if rituals never required supernatural forces? Think about the last time you performed any deliberate action with full intention. Maybe lighting a candle at a specific time, arranging objects in meaningful patterns, speaking words that felt heavier than normal conversation. Something shifted, not in the external world, not immediately, but internally. The question nobody asks correctly is this: what mechanism actually triggered that shift? The most unsettling answer isn't found in invisible entities or cosmic energies. It's found in how your brain processes symbolic action combined with focused attention. Rituals don't open doorways to other dimensions. They create psychological architecture that reorganizes your perception, emotion, and intention into a single concentrated point. When you perform a ritual, you're not summoning external power. You're activating internal systems that have always existed, waiting for the right structure to engage them. The difference between a vague wish and an executed ritual is precision. Wishes drift through consciousness without form. Rituals anchor intention into concrete actions, tangible symbols, and emotionally charged repetition. This isn't ancient magic in the supernatural sense. It's applied symbolic psychology that human cultures discovered independently across thousands of years. But here's what almost no one notices. The actual power of a ritual doesn't manifest during the performance itself. It emerges in the days and weeks after, when your perception has been quietly reprogrammed without conscious awareness of the process. Human cognition responds to symbols more powerfully than to abstract language. When you create a symbolic act loaded with genuine emotional intention, you're programming how your awareness filters reality. This means you begin noticing opportunities, patterns, and pathways that were always present but previously invisible to your attention. Not because the universe rearranged itself for you, but because your consciousness is now tuned to a specific frequency of perception. Focused awareness shapes experienced reality. That's the secret ancient traditions understood perfectly, even without modern neuroscience terminology. If this kind of investigation speaks to you, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Why does your brain treat symbolic actions as real events? The answer lies in how human neurology processes meaning and emotion. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between symbolic acts and literal acts when deep emotion is involved. That's why fiction makes you cry. That's why your heart races during suspenseful scenes. That's why rituals alter internal states so effectively. When you light a candle with specific intention, you're not just burning wax. You're creating an emotional event that your nervous system registers as significant. And emotionally significant events create lasting neural patterns. These patterns influence identity formation. Identity determines future behavior. So what appears to be a cult practice is actually psychological engineering refined over millennia. Ancient traditions of witchcraft and spirituality understood something modern science only recently began mapping. Human consciousness operates through pattern recognition, structured repetition, and symbol-laden meaning, not through pure rational logic. A properly executed ritual creates what we might call an internal transition state. You exit ordinary mental functioning and enter heightened attention, almost trance-like focus. In this altered state, three things occur simultaneously. First, your critical cognitive defenses lower. The skeptical, analytical part of your mind temporarily suspends operation. Second, your attention concentrates on a single symbolic objective. All mental energy converges on that specific point. Third, you create a deep emotional imprint that your subconscious carries forward as operational instruction. But there's a detail most people miss. This process doesn't require literal belief to function. It works through structure, not faith. You might not believe you're invoking spirits, but if you execute the ritual with genuine intention, your brain processes it as a real symbolic command anyway. And this is where the real hidden power lives. Because rituals operate below conscious awareness, they communicate directly with the part of mind that responds to narrative, archetype, and symbols of power. And that part doesn't question whether it's real. It simply responds to the pattern you've activated. Comment below if this perspective has ever made sense to you personally. How does symbolic action become concrete change? The first results from a ritual are almost never external. They emerge as subtle internal shifts that slip past conscious detection. Increased confidence, reduced anxiety, enhanced perception of opportunity, emotional alignment between thought and action. These changes seem minor, but they're the engine of real-world transformation. Because internal changes influence behavior patterns. Behavior patterns alter decision-making. Decisions create tangible outcomes in material reality. Consider it this way. You perform a prosperity ritual, not because you believe money will materialize from thin air, but because you need to structure your intention with solidity. During the ritual, you visualize abundance clearly. You feel the emotion of having resources. You repeat affirmations of personal worth. Your brain records all of this as genuine emotional experience. In the following days, something interesting happens. You start noticing work opportunities you previously overlooked. You find courage to negotiate higher compensation. You make connections you avoided before due to insecurity. None of this is supernatural. It's emotional conditioning applied through symbolic structure. But here's what almost no one notices. This process works better when you release desperate attachment to outcomes. When you perform the ritual, let go of anxious need, and continue living with present awareness. Because obsession creates blockage, anxiety generates paralysis. Clear intention followed by confident action creates flow. And flow is where actual results materialize. Ancient traditions of magic always knew this principle. They spoke of forgetting the spell after casting it, not because the spell needed time to work magically, but because your mind needs space to process change without conscious interference. And here's the insight that transforms everything. The ritual doesn't alter the world directly, it alters you. And the altered version of you interacts with the world differently. That different interaction produces different results. Simple in concept, profound in application. If this content is helping you see things differently, leave a like. It helps the channel continue this work. Why do repetition and intention generate measurable power? There's a principle that appears across all esoteric traditions, from European witchcraft to Eastern occult systems. Repetition charged with intention creates accumulated force. This isn't superstition, it's neuroplasticity disguised as magic. Each time you repeat a symbol, phrase, or gesture with authentic emotion, you strengthen specific neural connections. You literally reconstruct pathways in your brain. And these pathways become wide roads where your attention flows naturally and effortlessly. Consider mantras, words repeated thousands of times across sessions. On the surface, it appears to be empty mysticism, but what actually occurs is deep conditioning. The word becomes an emotional anchor. Every time you speak it, you instantly access the internal state associated with it. Calm, focus, power, confidence. You're not invoking entities. You're training your own mind to respond to symbolic commands. And this is hidden knowledge applied in brutally practical ways. But there's a deeper layer. When you combine repetition with visualization, controlled breathing, and concentrated emotional intention, you create what researchers now call a ritualistic flow state. In this state, the separation between you and your objective temporarily dissolves. You're no longer wanting something, you're temporarily being it. And this internal experience creates memory so strong that your brain begins treating it as known reality, not uncertain future. Here's what gets unsettling. This process functions independently of spiritual beliefs. Atheists can use symbolic rituals to reprogram mental patterns. Scientists can apply ritualistic structure to enhance focus. Business leaders can create personal ceremonies for difficult decisions. The power isn't in belief, it's in structure, in intention, in conscious repetition. And this opens a door few dare to walk through. Because if rituals work through psychology, then you've always possessed this power. You just didn't know how to activate it properly. What if the real magic is structured consciousness? We've arrived at the point where everything inverts. If rituals function through mind, then there's no real separation between magic and applied psychology. Both are methods of using symbolism, intention, and structure to alter perception and behavior. The only difference is vocabulary. Ancient traditions spoke of casting spells. Neuroscience speaks of reprogramming neural patterns. Same mechanism, different languages. And this realization is either liberation or threat, depending on your perspective. Because if rituals work without supernatural forces, then you're completely responsible for outcomes. There's no entity to blame, no fixed destiny, only you, your intention, and your capacity to structure attention powerfully. And this total responsibility can feel liberating or terrifying. Liberating because it means you have real control. Terrifying because it means you have no excuses. Now, here's the most powerful practical working you can use today in professional and personal life. It's not a magic word. It's not an ancestral symbol. It's this. Create a daily intention ritual. Every day, same time, same location. Do the following. Light a candle or simply sit in stillness. Take 3 deep breaths. Visualize with absolute clarity the result you want. Feel the emotion of already having achieved it. Speak aloud one sentence that captures your intention. Then release it. Don't obsess. Act in the world with quiet confidence. Repeat this for 30 days without missing once. And observe what shifts. This is the real hidden knowledge that crosses centuries and cultures. And perhaps the strongest ritual isn't one that changes the world directly, but one that changes you so thoroughly that the world around you has no choice but to respond differently. That's real magic. Accessible, practical, always available. You just needed to know where to look for it. If this video shifted your perspective, subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss upcoming content. Comment below which part resonated most with you.